welcome back to another video. Today we've got a set review, so it's super exciting. I was really hyped for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. The whole futuristic technology meets ninjas and samurai just really, appealed to me in that kind of nerd way. And I was really enjoying the story and all that, so I was really excited for this set. So if you haven't seen one of my set reviews, I do look at this set through the lens of mono black. I love building mono black decks, and I want to see where is mono black heading, what is this set adding to mono black, anything new or exciting that I can kind of use. The interesting thing about this set is that it is heavily enchantment focused and heavily artifact focused and heavily tribal focused, and not really in a tribe that is black. Well, I mean, ninjas are black, but it's more predominantly blue. So it's not really things that black are doing in general. So it does look like black has kind of hit a bit of a support kind of color in this set, but no matter, we'll go through, see what's here. So we'll start with the legendary creatures. So first up, Go Shintai of the Hidden Cruelty, legendary enchantment creature Shrine. So this one, not particularly probably a plausible mono black commander. I'd be very surprised if anyone made this a black commander, but it is a legendary creature, so you could have it as your commander. But really it has Shrine synergies. You're only going to be destroying, 1/1s essentially, or 2/1s. So, it's not really a viable commander, I would think. Somebody might be memeing out there. So we'll move on to Junji, the Midnight Sky. So 3 and 2 black, 5/5 flying menace, and basically has a die trigger. So when it dies, you're going to either have the choice of discarding, each opponent discards 2 cards and lose 2 life, or you essentially reanimate a non-dragon and you lose 2 life. So really interesting design. In mono black, it's quite difficult to kind of combo off with this. It is specifically non-dragon to kind of circumvent trying to get it back itself. So they've really gone to a lot of lengths to make sure that you don't combo off on this. Now there are some ways of doing that, and even in mono black there are ways. Essentially you need something like Conspiracy to change the type, and then you need like a Liliana Heretical Healer ultimate, so that you can kind of keep getting this, but then you're losing 2 life, so you need something additional to make sure that you get that life gain back. So quite difficult, I think, to do any kind of combo shenanigans. Probably not worth it. I think it's got really nice value. Flying Menace, 5/5, quite nice. Has a dragon if you have dragon synergies. The discard 2 cards for each opponent is quite nice. Really, I think that this deck is gonna just look like a Kakusho deck, and you could just swap this commander out and it would be probably fine. You might remove some of those life gain payoffs and just have some discard payoffs. So that's probably what this deck that I envision would kind of look, but I think that this would also play really well in the 99 of a lot of decks. It has a lot of synergies with things that mono black is already doing, so that's great. I think Junji, the Midnight Sky, it looks like a fun card. I don't think I'll build a deck around it, but I think I'll be trying it in the 99 stuff. Okay, Myojin of Grim Betrayal, 5 and 3 black, so 8 mana. Now in mono black, 8 mana isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's lots of Villas Brokers of Bloods and cards like of that are quite high in mana value that mono black can get to. So when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, it gets an indestructible. So you can't reanimate. Well, I mean you can reanimate, but you're not going to get the indestructible counter. And then you can remove that counter You can put onto the battlefield under your control all creatures that went into the graveyard that turn. From anywhere. So in particular, so it does support that kind of discard synergy there. You are going to remove so essentially you're going to board wipe, then remove the counter, then return all those creatures. Now it is cast from hand, so I don't particularly see this one being a commander, but you might try it in the 99. 8 mana is a lot, but this effect is kind of cool. Indestructible, I mean, it's only a 5/2. I think this will be fun, and you might kind of get it off, and then maybe you might be bored of it. I'd probably just play Rise of the Dark Realms over this. But maybe if you had that, if you had some counter synergy, or you cared about indestructible, I guess. Nothing really coming to my mind about using indestructible counters. It's more of an other color thing, using the different types of counters, like the new human. Tribal one that came out recently, and things like that, you know. Ultimately probably not a great commander, but definitely a fun card. Okay, and Nashi Moon Sage Scion, so 1 and 2 black. It's a rat, so go rat tribals. Not a tribe I've made yet. So it has ninjutsu. Now ninjutsu only works from the hand, so having this as your commander, you're not going to be able to use that ninjutsu effect, which is a bit disappointing. So when it deals combat damage, it essentially does a kind of Bolus Citadel kind of effect, where you get the card off each of your opponents. Exile the top card of each player's library. Yeah, so including yourself. And then you get one of the cards and you pay life. Which is really, really powerful effect. If you're running this as your commander, now you have to have things like haste. You have to have things like life gain. You have to have things like unblockable. Like this deck just starts looking really convoluted really quickly. I think that this will fit into the 99 of your ninja decks or your rat decks, no problems. But ultimately as a commander, probably not. So it's very interesting. You know, Mono Blake has 4 commanders here, and really only one of them probably is playable as a commander. But I do like Nashi Moonstage Scion and Myojin of Grim Betrayal. I do think those are fun cards, but ultimately probably not that great as commanders. Shrine, I'm not building a 5-color shrine deck, so you know that only really goes there. So Junji's probably the best one, I think, followed by, I think Nashi's really nice, just as 3 mana, super cheap. So yeah, I think Nashi will be fun. I'll put that index and try it, that's for sure, but ultimately I don't think that they're going to be too popular. Okay, so from the commanders we'll go to rares and mythics. So there's only a handful. I have included artifacts in here as well, obviously, because we can play some of the artifacts. So first up, Blade of the Oni, 1 in a black menace, essentially. So it has reconfigure, so you know, you can attach it. It is a creature and you can attach it as an equipment. So it's 3/1 menace. Doesn't really do anything, not particularly that interesting. Yeah, so then equip creature, so you can equip it for 2 and 2 black, and it's going to get base tower 5/5 menace and is a demon. Ultimately, I don't think that this is going to be particularly interesting in terms of Voltron. Normally in mono black, there's not a lot of creatures that this is really going to pump up. I did have Krovax the Cursed was one that I was looking at. that this might be really good in, because essentially it's a 0/0 with counters, so it's going to be a 5/5, so it'll be 9/9 all up, but you know, and obviously then you just have your Krovax kind of deck. So that was interesting, I thought, but then I was thinking about, okay, what are aggressive mono black? You've got Vampire Tribal that you could probably stick this in, a lot of little vampires, and 1/1 vampires that, you know, you might want to kind of do. I don't think I'd put this in my Demon Tribal deck, but it is a demon, but ultimately I don't think it's particularly great. It is a creature, so I think it just dies relatively easy. I would rather it just be an equipment, and just leave it at that. Okay, so that's the only other mythic. So Biting Palm Ninja, ninjutsu, 3 and a black. When it comes in, it has a menace counter. You remove a menace counter, and you essentially thought see someone. Not really a commander kind of card. It's just one player. So I probably wouldn't really play this. Not even like a Tiny Bones or something like that. But the art is fantastic. Invoke Despair. So they have their invoke cycle. This is probably the worst one. Target opponent sacrifice a creature or a enchantment or a planeswalker. So it is enchantment removal, but it is sacrifice, so you don't get to choose. If they can't, they lose 2 life and draw a card. So it's 1 and 4 black, take 3 damage, draw 3 cards, or they sacrifice creature, enchantment, and planeswalker. Yeah, ultimately I don't think this is great rate. Maybe if this was instant, I might consider it. It is a 3-for-1, because I guess you get the card as well if they can't. Yeah, ultimately I think this will just not be very interesting. March of the Wretched Sorrow, so they have all these March, they also have this March cycle where you can pitch a black card. And it's going to make it 2 cheaper. So you can do X damage to target creature or planeswalker and you gain X life. That's nice, I guess. It's instant. You know, you can, you know, if your hand's quite large full of black cards, you might want to pitch some to this. You are exiling those cards. So it's not like they go to the graveyard, which is a bit disappointing. But I can see why they would do something like that. So yeah, it's a bit of removal, a bit of life gain. It's kind of nice. I think it would be, it's going to be pretty probably budget, and it might be nice. It's kind of like Tendrils of Corruption and things like that. So very similar. So Tendrils of Corruption is equal to your swamps, and it's 4 or 6, I can't remember. So yeah, I'd still probably play that over this. Mech Titan Core. So, you know, we don't really have a lot of artifact synergies, and nothing really that would kind of support this Mech Titan Core. That's 2 mana, 2/4. I think this is a cool, maybe standard card or play a build around card, but you need 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles you control. So not really something Mono Black's known for, but really, really cool. I think if you want to stick it in your deck, sure, go ahead. Mirror Box. So this is interesting. So Legend Rule doesn't apply, which is great. Each legendary creature you control, great. Gets +1/+1, and creature you control get +1/+1 for each creature you control with the same name as that creature. So yeah, pretty powerful. I've been thinking about doing a Mono Black Legends only deck that I thought would be pretty cool. So I think that would slot into that. I don't know what that deck looks like. Ultimately, I think this is more for other colors, but yeah, this one's a cool card. I like it. I think you can build around it. Mukute Soul Reaper. So 1 and a black, 4/3 crew 2 vehicle. That's pretty good. When it attacks, you sacrifice, which is all attack triggers, not particularly that great. It is a sack outlet. You put a counter on it and gets menace. This is more of a standard pushed card. It's not really a commander card, but it would go in your Mono Black, vehicle artifact deck if you really wanted that, but I don't really see that happening. Reckoner Bankbuster. So it comes with 3 charge counters, and you can remove those charge counters and draw a card. and then get a treasure, and then get a pilot. So, you know, interesting. It's like a Mage Mind's Tome, which, you know, you can see play that kind of 2 mana draw a card effect. Not particularly great, but, you know, you might put this in your deck, sure. Ruthless Technomancer. Everyone's lost their minds over this one. So 3 and 1 black, Human Wizard. This one was always so hard to pass the art because it was really hard to see his face. You have to really zoom in. So when it enters, you may sacrifice a creature, and then you create treasure equal to that power. So very similar to Disciple of Bolas, except not drawing cards, you're getting treasures. And then you can pay 2 and a black and sacrifice X artifacts, return tag a creature card with power X or less from the graveyard. So it's pretty good effect. I think in mono black it's as fair as possible. You know, I know people are talking about Dark-Sided Sorceress and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, you need to have spare artifacts. I think in your Makai deck, you might, where you have gold, if I remember correctly. So you might do something like that. Yeah, but other than that, you know, when Mono Black doesn't really have a lot of spare artifacts just sitting around. These are for the new card that did like food tokens, treasure tokens, and clue tokens. So if you're playing that kind of synergy, you might want to look at this because I think that combos very well with that. The 3 mana 3/3 from Modern Horizons, who's the name, can't remember the name. But yeah, essentially that kind of synergy you might want to look at. Soul Transfer, 1 and 2 black sorcery. So choose one. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, you can choose both. So exile target creature or planeswalker and return a creature or planeswalker to your hand. Ultimately, those two effects are not that particularly powerful. I think exile target creature or planeswalker for 3 mana on an instant speed card is usually about right, if not too expensive. And returning that creature or planeswalker, also this is too expensive. The problem is that this is on a sorcery. If this is on the instant, it might be a bit interesting. You also need to have an artifact and an enchantment. I actually think that might be easier to have than we might presume, only because well, I think if you are a enchantment heavy deck, then you might be able to fulfill this a lot easier, because a lot of the artifacts are your mana rocks and things like that. So, you know, you can generally fulfill that, and then you have your enchantments. So, you know, like there's a lot of discard enchantments and things like that you might be playing. So, you know, you might be able to fulfill this, but ultimately I don't think it's a particularly strong effect. 3 mana for both of these. I think if you know you can get both, like you have to have it in the graveyard. You have to be artifacts, enchantments, and creatures, all planeswalkers. Like, it's a lot of hoops. I think ultimately it's going to be too hard. Search Hacker Mech, it's going to deal equal damage to your vehicles, not particularly that interesting. Tribute to Hirobi. So each opponent creates a black rat, and then essentially all these sagas transform when they come back. You gain control of all those rats. So there's two steps here. Now your opponents are either going to sacrifice them or they're going to just run them into each other. So I don't particularly think that's going to be great, but you are going to get a lot of rats because it is each opponent. And then you gain control of all those rats, which probably won't be a lot. And then when attacked, you can sacrifice a creature. If you do, draw a card. Not really that great. It is flying haste 3/3. It is really cool art. But ultimately I don't think it's very interesting. I think maybe you might try it in your rat deck, but I think you'd just rather be playing actual rat creatures. So yeah, so those are rates. In terms of uncommons and commons, there were a few interesting ones. Assassin's Ink's probably not that great, especially even if you could do both. Destroy target creature or planeswalker for 2 mana black. That seems good, but you really have to guarantee that you can fulfill both. Then we have Containment Construct. This one's really interesting. 2 mana, so quite cheap. And essentially when you discard, you exile it, and then you can play that card. So it is play, so you can play lands, but essentially it's giving things madness for their costs. So that's really nice. I think this is a cool card. We have a lot of discard effects. It's kind of like a bag of holding style effect. So I think if you're playing a discard Tiny Bones, I think I might try this. Yeah. Dockside Chef. This is an interesting one. Basically, vampiric rites, except you don't gain a life, but you can sacrifice artifacts, which was quite nice. So if this goes into your techno, your ruthless technomancer deck, then sure. Gravelighter was another interesting one. This one's one. It's like, okay, it's a 3-mana 2/2 creature. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature died. Otherwise, each player sacrifices. So this one reads like it's pretty good, but ultimately I think this one will be one that in play we're probably not going to be as interested. Because yes, it draws a card if a creature died, which is nice, but I probably just want the sack of creatures, and it is each player, so that does obviously include yourself. So you know, I'd probably just like, if I've got those Fleshbag Marauders, I probably just want the sacrifice. That's why it's in the deck. Rather than just kind of replacing itself, and then it's the 3-mana 2/2 flying creature, which is not particularly interesting. So yeah, not too fussed about that one. Life for Toshiro Umezawa. You get all these kind of choice of these nice effects, pumping up all negatives, and then you get to flip it over and you get this kind of mana dork. Ultimately, I think that you might play this in your Toshiro Umezawa deck, but really you probably would just rather have an instant sorcerer in that place. Then there was a few further down. Oh yeah, Secluded Courtyard. This one's really great. It's basically a better unclaimed territory. Probably not for mono black. I'd probably just play a swamp in this slot, obviously, but interesting. The Long Reach of Night. Another one. So 4 mana, so 3 and a black. It's a bit expensive, I think, but each opponent sacrifices or discards, so you're going to get that. So even if they can't sacrifice, they're going to discard a card. Each opponent sacrifices a creature unless they discard a card. So if they have no cards in their hand, then they will sacrifice a creature. So, you know, you're going to get some of that value, and then it's going to flip. On the other side, doesn't really particularly that appealing. Menace 0/4 that gets pumped. Not particularly that great. This Undercity Scoundrel, creating a treasure token every turn if a creature died. Essentially got more, but create a treasure token. 1/4 taps, you know, could be interesting. Virus Beetle. This one's for your Shizo's Caretaker kind of decks. They like this kind of creature where it just comes in the battlefield. Each opponent discards a card rather than each player. So that's really nice. And You Are Already Dead. You know, this one kind of replaces itself, but ultimately I don't think this is a particularly interesting card. So yeah, so that's the set. I thought some legendaries that might kind of get bumped up by the set. So Ephemia, there's a lot of enchantments going on, so you might want to have a look at maybe, you know, increasing some of your Ephemia decks, or maybe like your Armix Filigree Thrasher or Keskik the Flesh Sculptor. These are really the only artifact kind of synergy ones that I was thinking of. So you might want to have a look at that. Again, these kind of do synergize with having as many artifacts as you want, or as you can, and these ones obviously in the graveyard. So, you know, these might be ones that you might want to look at, but ultimately I think that it's an interesting set. Probably not that great for mono black. I think it's going to probably be more of a supportive card here, but Junji I think will definitely be the most popular. I think Nashi will get included in a lot of decks. Go Shintai would just be popular because there's a shrine, and Myojin probably be the least popular just because it's so expensive, but I definitely will be picking up at least 3 of these cards. So yeah, so that's my video. Excited for the set. I do have a deck tech coming that is Kamigawa themed, not these ones, but one from past Kamigawa that I decided to do as kind of a celebration for Kamigawa coming up, because I hadn't really played the set back when it was around. So yeah, so look forward to that, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.